Have you ever wondered if it's too late to start something new or change your life, especially as you grow older? What if the key to happiness isn't about being young, but about living passionately, no matter your age? In this video, we'll share the inspiring journey of Emiko, a woman who, despite the challenges of aging, discovered the true meaning of living fully. From learning the piano at an age when most people slowed down, to finding joy in her daily routine, Emiko's story will inspire you to embrace life's second chances, find happiness within yourself, and create your path to fulfillment. Why should you stick around until the end? We'll dive into the wisdom Emiko gained through years of personal growth, how she turned simple moments into powerful life lessons, and how you can apply these insights to create a meaningful and joyful life, no matter where you are in your journey. Plus, we'll reveal how she turned her love for others into a legacy of peace, health, and happiness, and how you too can build a life that doesn't just survive but thrives. This video isn't just for the elderly, it's for anyone who's ever felt uncertain about the future or questioned their strength. Watch until the end to see how you can live with more passion, resilience, and joy, just like Emiko. If you are not subscribed, I recommend subscribing and activating the notification bell so you don't miss any videos. Your support means a lot to me. And if you enjoyed this video, you can help me continue spreading the valuable lessons by liking and sharing it. If you like the topic of this video, please comment 1. If you don't, please comment 0 to let me know how I can improve and make better videos for you. Now, let's begin. Emiko's words echo the wisdom of a woman who has lived a life full of sacrifices, challenges, and quiet revelations. I finally realized that what is truly needed to live a happy old age is not children or money, but these 3 things. But what are these 3 treasures? And how did Emiko come to discover them after decades of life's ups and downs? Today, I want to share with you the inspiring story of a woman who, after dedicating years of her life to others, found the kind of happiness that comes not from the world's expectations but from an intimate, personal journey. How did Emiko, a mother who spent her youth nurturing and supporting her children, discover the brightest light in the twilight years of her life? As parents, many of us pour our hearts and souls into raising our children, often at the expense of our desires, dreams, and happiness. We give so much of ourselves that, at times, we become mere shadows of our former selves, fading into the background while our children take center stage. But what happens when, after years of selflessness, a parent learns to love themselves, to find joy within, and to embrace their happiness? The answer lies in Emiko's realization. When parents are happy and at peace with themselves, their children inevitably feel that peace too. It was this profound truth that Emiko uncovered after much reflection. She learned that true happiness is not a gift we can give our children, but something we must first cultivate within ourselves. Emiko's journey was not an easy one. For years, she poured every ounce of her energy into her family, her small restaurant in Asakusa, and the daily grind of life. But as time passed, she realized that the key to a fulfilling old age wasn't about amassing wealth or waiting for the love of her children to fill the void. It was about something much more personal and profound. The 3 treasures she discovered, things that transcended the material and the mundane, changed not only the way she lived but also her perspective on aging itself. She came to understand that the greatest happiness in life doesn't come from following the prescribed path others set for us. It comes from confidently walking the path that feels true to our hearts and our souls. For Emiko, preparing for old age meant much more than saving money or relying on others. It meant preparing herself, emotionally, spiritually, and mentally, to embrace the changes that come with age, with grace and acceptance. Her words were simple, yet they carried a depth that could stir the hearts of those who heard them. They were like a soft, guiding light, illuminating a new path for those who have been searching for the true meaning of happiness. Her message was clear. True happiness lies not in external things, but in how we relate to ourselves and the world around us. Emiko's story is a reminder that the most profound life lessons often come not from the places we expect, but from the quiet moments of self-reflection, the willingness to listen to our hearts, and the courage to live life on our terms. Today, let's delve deeper into the life of Emiko Takahashi, the 68-year-old woman who discovered these three treasures in her later years and found a new way of living. One filled with peace, joy, and acceptance. On the day she decided to close the small restaurant she had run for 34 years in Asakusa, Tokyo, Emiko realized something she hadn't fully understood before. It was a lesson not just about her business, but about life itself. Her daughters, Haruka and Yuki, had been gently urging her to retire and move in with them, worried that she might feel lonely or overburdened from the daily work. "Mom, you've worked so hard for so long," they said. "Now it's time to rest, to let us take care of you." Though they spoke with love and concern, Emiko's response was not one of resistance, but of deep peace. She smiled softly, her eyes filled with understanding, knowing that the time had come for her to stop and truly reflect on what life had taught her. Her decision was not made out of exhaustion or fear, but from a deep sense of gratitude and clarity. She realized that the true treasures of life were not to be found in what others expected of her or in what she could provide for others. They were found in the quiet moments of reflection, in the courage to release the past, and in the ability to embrace the future with open arms and a full heart. Through this experience, Emiko found happiness that was not about giving more to others, but about giving more to herself, about loving herself enough to finally take a step back and enjoy the peace she had long deserved. Emiko's story is one of profound self-discovery, of a woman who learned to live for herself after years of living for others. It's a reminder that true happiness, especially in our later years, is not about fulfilling others' expectations, but about finding the courage to fulfill our own heart's deepest desires. 34 years ago, life threw an unimaginable challenge at Emiko. In the blink of an eye, she lost her beloved husband in a tragic accident, leaving her to raise their two young daughters alone. The weight of that loss crushed her heart, but her strength shone through. With no intention of burdening her family or anyone else, Emiko made a bold decision. She opened a small, humble restaurant by the roadside. There, she served simple yet nourishing meals, like rice and miso soup, with love and care. Day after day, Emiko worked tirelessly, her hands worn and calloused, her back aching from long hours on her feet. Every penny she earned was carefully saved, not just for her daughter's education, but for the dreams she held deep within her heart, the dreams of one day giving them beautiful, heartfelt weddings. She knew that in a world that often felt indifferent, her daughter's happiness and future were her only priorities. She sacrificed so much for them, and despite the overwhelming pressure, she never faltered. Emiko embodied the very essence of selflessness, of love so pure it could overcome even the hardest of trials. Now, as she aged, Emiko had to make the difficult decision to close her restaurant. But even in the face of such a significant change, there was no panic, no regret. Emiko faced this new chapter with grace and remarkable calm. "Don't worry, Mom. I can take care of myself," her daughters, Haruka and Yuki, said, not fully understanding why their mother insisted on doing things her way. After all the struggles she had endured, they thought that now, finally, after all those years of sacrifice, she should relax and let them help her. But Emiko, ever the woman of conviction, explained her reasoning with a tenderness that only years of wisdom could bring. If you are still watching this video and find these lessons useful, please comment 1 below to let me know that you are still here with me. "Over the past 34 years, I've learned one thing," Emiko said softly, her voice steady but filled with emotion. "It's when people rely on themselves that they are truly happy and strong. You both have grown up and found your paths, and now I need to find mine. I want to live the rest of my days in peace, without burdening anyone else." Haruka and Yuki were taken aback, confused at first. They couldn't comprehend why their mother, after so many years of struggle, wouldn't accept their offer of support. But then one day, they received a picture from Emiko, a snapshot of her radiant smile, sent from Nagano, her eyes filled with a quiet joy that spoke volumes. At that moment, they understood. Their mother had made the right choice. It wasn't about relying on others, it wasn't about following expectations. It was about living authentically, about doing what made her heart feel free. Emiko had given them a profound lesson. True happiness doesn't come from living for others or fulfilling societal expectations. It comes from within, from loving oneself and following the path that feels right, even if it's a path few can understand. As Emiko entered her later years, people often say that there are 3 things you need to live well: health, relationships, and hobbies. Emiko knew that the first of these was health. The years of standing behind the counter, serving meal after meal, had taken their toll. Her shoulders and back ached, and she was eventually diagnosed with a herniated disc. The pain was constant, a reminder of all the years of hard work she had put in to create a life for her daughters. Yet, despite the suffering, Emiko never stopped. She kept going because that was her nature. But after retiring, Emiko knew it was time to change. She had earned the right to live her life on her terms, to focus on what mattered most to her. Every morning, she woke up with the same quiet resolve. Today, I'll go for a walk, even if it's just 1 lap. It wasn't about doing something grand. It was about embracing the small joys, the moments that made her feel alive. And in those moments, she found peace. She found happiness, not in the world's approval or in living for anyone else, but in living for herself. Emiko's journey is a testament to resilience, to the quiet power of self-reliance, and to the importance of finding joy in the simplest things. It is a reminder that no matter the hardship, no matter the challenge, the greatest strength lies in choosing to stand tall and face the world with your own heart, your own convictions, and your own peace. At first, Emiko's daily walks were just small, tentative steps around the local park. The discomfort in her back was constant, a dull ache that gnawed at her with every movement, yet she refused to let it defeat her. It was almost as if the pain was her reminder that she was still alive, still fighting, still moving forward. Slowly but surely, she started to push herself a little further each day. 1 lap turned into 2, and then 2 became 3. It wasn't just her body that was transforming. Her spirit was, too. With every step, the burden on her back seemed to ease, and the weight in her heart lightened. Over 2 months, she began to feel a shift, an uplifting lightness in both body and mind. She wasn't just walking anymore. She was reclaiming her life. Her heart grew lighter, and for the first time in a long while, she felt the sting of loneliness ebb away, replaced by a renewed sense of hope. Then, one beautiful, sunlit afternoon, while resting on a bench, an elderly woman approached her with a warm, knowing smile. "You walk every day," she said kindly. "Would you like to join our yoga club? It's very gentle, and anyone can join." At that moment, Emiko felt something stir within her. Perhaps it was the gentle encouragement of this stranger, or perhaps it was the realization that life was still offering her opportunities, even in her later years. Without a second thought, she agreed. Yoga became more than just an exercise to Emiko. It was a revelation. In one of her first classes, surrounded by new faces and new energy, she shared her thoughts with the group. "Until now, I thought my health was something my children would take care of," she confessed, her voice soft but firm. "But now, I realize that my health is my own treasure. I shouldn't burden others with my medical bills and care. I should take care of myself. That's true freedom." There, on that yoga mat, Emiko experienced a profound realization. The power to shape her future, to preserve her well-being, rested entirely in her hands. It was a moment of clarity that stirred something deep within her, a sense of independence and self-worth that she had never felt before. But it wasn't just about physical health for Emiko. It was about nurturing relationships too. One morning, as she walked through her neighborhood, a small, colorful flyer caught her eye. It was calling for volunteers to help with a community flower project. Emiko had no experience with plants, but something about it felt right. Maybe it was the chance to try something new, to connect with others, or perhaps just the idea of contributing to something beautiful. So, she decided to take a chance. On her first day volunteering, she was handed a shovel and assigned to weed the garden and prepare the soil for new flower beds. The work was harder than she expected, and the heavy, awkward shovel seemed to fight her every step of the way. But amid her struggle, a shy little voice interrupted her thoughts. "Grandma, am I doing this right?" Emiko turned to see an 8-year-old boy, his eyes wide with curiosity. She smiled gently and offered her guidance, teaching him how to hold the shovel correctly, and showing him the delicate art of digging without damaging the fragile roots beneath. That simple moment sparked something in Emiko, an unexpected connection that blossomed. From that day forward, she became more than just a volunteer. She became a mentor and a friend. She interacted with the boy often, teaching him, laughing with him, and feeling an emotional bond grow between them. She also formed new friendships with other volunteers, and every week, she eagerly returned to the park in the mornings, eager to care for the flower beds and watch her efforts bloom into something beautiful. One day, while carefully watering the flowers, an older woman approached her, her face filled with curiosity. "Do you also grow flowers?" she asked, admiring the vibrant blooms. Emiko paused for a moment, then replied, her voice full of quiet joy, "Actually, I've never grown anything before, but these flowers make me feel like I'm starting a new life." It was then that Emiko realized something profound. The flowers were not just plants, they were symbols of her growth, her transformation. As the flowers blossomed under her care, so too did her heart, blooming with new friendships, new experiences, and a newfound sense of purpose. The loneliness that once haunted her was no longer her constant companion. It was replaced by the warmth of connection, the joy of shared moments, and the simple pleasure of watching life, and herself, grow. Emiko's journey was one of self-discovery, where she not only embraced her own health and independence but also cultivated relationships that nourished her soul. In the process, she found that life, no matter the stage, always has the potential for renewal and beauty. And for that, she was deeply grateful. At a volunteer gathering, Emiko shared her reflections, her voice filled with warmth and wisdom. She said, "The greatest fear in old age is not loneliness. It's the heartbreaking realization that you have no value left to offer. But when you open your heart to new experiences, when you dare to try things you've never done before, you discover relationships that are more precious than gold. That's when you begin to defeat the loneliness that might otherwise consume you." Her words struck everyone deeply, leaving a lingering sense of hope and encouragement. She wasn't just speaking from theory. She was sharing the lessons of her own life, filled with both struggles and triumphs. But it wasn't just about finding meaning in the company of others. There was another facet to her story: hobbies. One day, her daughters, with their faces full of surprise, asked, "Mom, are you going to take piano lessons?" The astonishment in their voices was unmistakable. The idea of their 68-year-old mother, a woman who had always been the rock of their family, suddenly embarking on a new journey of self-discovery, was beyond what they had ever imagined. But Emiko, unwavering and determined, simply smiled. She had carried the desire to learn the piano for decades, ever since she was a young girl. Life, however, had been too demanding. The weight of raising children, supporting her family, and fulfilling endless responsibilities had pushed her dream to the background, out of sight, out of reach. But now, as the years had granted her more time for herself, she was finally determined to reclaim that dream. At first, the challenges were overwhelming. Sitting at the piano, she found herself struggling with the most basic of movements. Her fingers no longer danced over the keys with the grace they once had in her youth. The frustration was palpable, yet there was something deeper than frustration driving her forward. It was a quiet, resilient determination. She would not let her age define her limitations. 4 hours every day, she practiced, slowly, carefully, methodically, repeating simple scales, getting familiar with each note, each key, as if reconnecting with a long-lost part of herself. And though the progress was slow, something magical began to happen. Week by week, her fingers grew more agile and more confident. The music she played began to sing, not just as notes on a page, but as expressions of her heart. Her spirit was touched in ways she hadn't anticipated. Emiko often said, "Time is not something to simply fill. It's something to create. Each day, even with the simplest of notes, is a chance to craft something beautiful, to shape life into a melody of our own. Her words, like the music she now created, were full of meaning, full of life. She had discovered that the beauty of life is not in simply surviving, but in creating, every single day. The thought of learning something new in old age might seem daunting to many, but Emiko would argue otherwise. The true fear, she said with a spark in her eye, is not in starting something new. The real fear is in never starting at all. And that belief guided her forward with a steady heart. 6 months later, Emiko's life had transformed in ways she hadn't even imagined. She could now play the simple songs she had always loved as a young girl. Songs that had once seemed so distant, like echoes from another life. But more than that, she found an entirely new world within herself, a world where the music she played became her sanctuary, her joy, her peace. Each time she sat at the piano, she felt the rush of youth again, the vitality of a young girl rediscovering the magic of life. The sound of the piano was no longer just a melody. It was the song of her soul, carrying her through the years with grace and beauty. Emiko had not only reclaimed her long-forgotten dream, but she had also reclaimed herself. "Mom, do you like living alone?" her eldest daughter asked, her voice thick with concern. The question hung in the air, laden with the weight of unspoken worries. She had always been the one to worry about her mother, her independent, quiet mother, who lived far away from the rest of the family, in her small but cozy home. It was a home full of memories, yes, but also a space that sometimes seemed to echo with the silence of her solitude. The daughter, with her heart full of love and care, couldn't help but wonder, was her mother lonely? Did she feel abandoned by her children? Did she wish they were there with her every day? Emiko, however, didn't flinch. Her calm expression never wavered, as if she had already thought through her daughter's question 1,000 times before it was even asked. Her eyes, full of tenderness and wisdom, met her daughter's gaze. She knew that her child, who had always been so concerned for her well-being, needed reassurance. But Emiko also knew that there was something deeper she had to explain, something that would not be understood at first. She took a deep breath, letting the words come slowly but steadily, filled with a kind of quiet strength. "It's because I love you that I choose to keep some distance," she said, her voice soft yet firm, the weight of her words settling like a gentle but undeniable truth. "Being with you constantly, living in your home, might seem like an act of love. But I fear it would be selfish. It could turn into something that feels more like an obligation rather than a choice. I don't want you to feel bound by me, to feel that you have to care for me in ways that might weigh you down." Her daughter's brow furrowed slightly as she absorbed her mother's words. There was a brief silence. Emiko continued, her gaze unwavering. "What I want is for you to live freely. I want you to follow your own path without the burden of my presence holding you back. Let me take care of myself. That's how I love you. By giving you the freedom to live your life as you wish, without ever feeling that my needs come before your own." The two daughters were left speechless, their minds racing to fully comprehend their mother's deep and selfless words. How could distance, how could space, be an expression of love? How could her mother's choice to live alone be an act of care rather than a sign of emotional detachment? They didn't fully understand it at that moment, but there was a certain peace in their mother's demeanor, an unwavering certainty in her decision that left them no choice but to trust her. As days turned into weeks, and weeks into months, the daughters began to reflect on their mother's choice more deeply. They saw that it wasn't about physical proximity. It wasn't about always being together under the same roof. It was about respect. Respect for one another's space, for each other's lives, and for the autonomy that each person must maintain to truly flourish. They realized that Emiko wasn't rejecting them. She wasn't pushing them away in a cold or hurtful way. Instead, she was teaching them a lesson in love that would be difficult for anyone who had grown up with the expectation that family always lived close, and that love was measured by proximity. If you are still watching this video and find these lessons useful, please comment 2 below to let me know that you are still here with me. True love, they now saw, wasn't about constant closeness, but about the freedom to live as an individual, while still holding one another in the heart. It wasn't about depending on each other for happiness, but about creating happiness and sharing that joy freely with others. And their mother, with her peaceful resolve, had created a life where love could exist without suffocating, without dependence, and without the pressures of obligation. One quiet afternoon, as they sat together in the kitchen sipping tea, the youngest daughter, who had once felt sadness at her mother's solitude, turned to her sister with a quiet reflection. "If Mom had lived with us, she probably wouldn't be as happy as she is now," she said, almost as if to herself. Her voice carried a tinge of bittersweet understanding. She had always worried about her mother being alone, about the emptiness of her days. But now, watching her mother from a distance, she saw something different. She saw a woman who was not lonely at all. She saw Emiko, a woman vibrant with life, full of purpose and energy. Together, they watched their mother as she went about her day, gracefully moving through the routine that had become her own. Emiko's life was busy, yes, but it was fulfilling in ways that none of them had fully understood before. She started each day with yoga, stretching her limbs in gentle but deliberate movements, taking time to center herself before the world awoke. It wasn't just exercise, it was her moment of peace, her way of connecting with her body and soul. After yoga, Emiko often volunteered at a local meal program, serving food to those in need, giving her time and energy to a cause that filled her heart with joy. Her afternoons were spent in meaningful work, and by the time evening rolled around, she would sit at her piano, her fingers dancing over the keys, filling the room with the soft music she had always loved. It was her way of winding down, of finding solace in the beauty of sound. On weekends, her children and grandchildren would visit. They would come together for meals, simple, but joyful gatherings that were never too long or too close. There was always an unspoken understanding between them. They could share their time together, but they could also retreat into their own spaces when needed. Emiko had created a rhythm of life that balanced connection and independence perfectly. Her daughters realized that their mother had mastered something they hadn't fully appreciated before: the ability to live a full, rich life that wasn't dependent on anyone else's approval or presence. Emiko's life was her own, and yet, she shared it freely with those she loved. Her routine was her way of honoring her body, her spirit, and her relationships. She understood, perhaps better than anyone else, that a healthy body, fulfilling relationships, and a passion for hobbies were the most important foundations for old age. To Emiko, growing older wasn't something to fear. What truly frightened her was the idea of losing the courage to take care of herself, to stop seeking out joy and purpose, and to let the years pass without making the most of them. It wasn't the ticking of the clock that terrified her. It was the thought of standing still, of growing stagnant. And so, she chose to keep moving, to embrace every day with a sense of adventure, to continue learning, growing, and connecting. Her daughters, watching her, came to understand that love wasn't about being physically close all the time. It was about creating a life in which each person could thrive on their own, but still share the beauty of life. Emiko had taught them that true love was about freedom, the freedom to live fully, to care for oneself, and to give that love to others without expectation or obligation. And in doing so, she had built a life that was not only full of love but also full of happiness. The second treasure Emiko discovered in her life, the treasure of relationships, gradually grew into something far more profound and essential. It wasn't just about knowing people or having acquaintances. It was about cultivating meaningful, sincere connections that made life truly worthwhile. Through her involvement in volunteer work, Emiko began to forge bonds that nourished her soul. She didn't just give her time to causes. She gave her heart, and in return, she received far more than she ever expected. One of the most beautiful outcomes of her volunteer work was the hiking group she formed. At first, it was a simple idea: gather a few friends to hike once a month. But as the months passed, it became much more than that. The hikes were a chance for Emiko to escape the noise of daily life, reconnect with nature, and share these quiet, intimate moments with others who shared her love of the outdoors. There was something magical about walking through the mountains, breathing in the fresh, crisp air, and feeling the steady rhythm of her feet on the ground as her friends walked beside her. They were no longer just acquaintances, but a tight-knit group of companions, people who had come to know each other most genuinely. They laughed together, shared stories of their lives, and supported one another in moments of vulnerability. Each hike was like a balm for her soul. It added new layers of joy and fulfillment to her life. With every step, Emiko felt the worries and stresses of her past life slip further away. She no longer had time to dwell on the small things that once troubled her. Her days were now packed with purpose, laughter, and connection. She was truly living, something she hadn't realized she was missing for so long. Her daughters, too, noticed the change. Lately, Mom's been so busy, Yuki, her younger daughter, remarked one evening as they sat around the dinner table. Emiko couldn't help but smile as she caught her daughter's teasing tone. Yuki's words held no bitterness, only a kind of affectionate humor. The two sisters laughed together, their bond growing stronger with each passing year. But beneath their laughter was something deeper, an understanding that their mother was no longer consumed by the monotony of daily life. Emiko had discovered something far more valuable than the endless demands of work and household chores. She had found true happiness in the form of deep, loving relationships. She was no longer the woman who lived solely for her children. She had become someone who had learned to live for herself as well. Her life was no longer about sacrifice. It was about balance, connection, and, above all, joy. One day, Emiko decided to take a trip to Hokkaido with her friends from the piano club. It was a big step, her first trip without her children. At first, she hesitated. The thought of leaving her daughters behind, even for a short while, made her heart ache. But as the trip approached, that twinge of sadness was gradually replaced by excitement. This was her time to rediscover herself, to experience something new without the responsibility of motherhood weighing her down. It was a rare opportunity, and Emiko embraced it with open arms. The trip was a revelation. Hokkaido, with its snow-covered landscapes and peaceful serenity, felt like a world apart. Emiko and her friends wandered through the charming streets, exploring local shops and sampling delicious food. For the first time in years, she felt free. Free from the constant demands of family life, free to just be Emiko. The joy of the trip wasn't just in the sights and sounds of a new place, but in the companionship of people who truly understood her, who saw her not just as a mother, but as a person with dreams and desires of her own. It was a liberating experience. One evening, as they gathered together over tea in a cozy cafe, Emiko found herself reflecting on the meaning of friendship. As we grow older, friends become more precious than medicine, she said softly, her voice filled with emotion. Children always see us in one way, as their parents, but friends are mirrors. They help us see ourselves, they show us who we are, our flaws, and our strengths, and they accept us no matter what. Friends help us polish the rough edges, and they walk beside us without judgment or hurt. They're the companions who see us at our best and at our worst, and yet, they stay by our side. Her words seemed to resonate with everyone in the room. There was something undeniably powerful about the way friendships evolved with time. As we grow older, we realize that the relationships we form as adults, especially those that are not bound by family or obligation, are the ones that often bring the deepest joy and fulfillment. These are the relationships that, unlike family bonds, are chosen freely, based on mutual respect, shared experiences, and a genuine love for one another. Emiko thought about how time had always seemed like something that simply passed by, an endless ticking clock that never stopped. But now she saw time in a different light. Time wasn't just something that slipped through our fingers like sand. It was something we accumulated. How we chose to spend that time, with whom we shared it, and what we did with it, this determined its weight, its value. Every moment spent with her friends, every laugh shared, and every challenge overcome together added richness to her life in ways she couldn't even begin to explain. Yet, as much as Emiko cherished the life she had built, life had a way of reminding her of its fragility. One cold winter evening, as she was returning from a piano lesson, she received devastating news that shattered her peace. Aiko, a dear friend with whom she had worked for 34 years in the cafeteria, had passed away. The news hit her like a sudden blow to the chest. Aiko had been a constant presence in her life, and to imagine the world without her seemed impossible. Aiko had lived a quiet life, her children grown and living far away. She had always put her family first, dedicating her years to caring for her children and making sure they had everything they needed. But in the end, she died alone. Her body was found only a week after she passed. Emiko's heart sank as she thought of Aiko's loneliness, of how she had lived so selflessly for others but had been left to face the end of her life in solitude. That night, Emiko lay awake in bed, the weight of the news heavy on her heart. She couldn't stop thinking about Aiko's life and death. It felt as though the universe had delivered a harsh, unspoken lesson, a reminder that no matter how much we give, no matter how much love we pour into others, we can't control how our lives will end. Emiko was consumed by a sense of deep sorrow, mixed with fear. What if she, too, one day found herself alone, forgotten by those she had cared for so deeply? But as the hours ticked by, a realization began to form in Emiko's mind. Yes, life was fragile. Yes, it was unpredictable. But it was also precious. The connections we make, and the love we give and receive, are the true treasures of life. While Aiko's passing was a painful reminder of life's inevitable end, it was also a testament to the beauty of living fully, of giving our hearts to others, and of cherishing the people who walk beside us. Emiko knew that, no matter what the future held, she had lived a life filled with meaning, full of friendships, love, and the knowledge that she had not only given but received in abundance. As she drifted off to sleep that night, her heart felt a little lighter, knowing that the time she had spent on earth, the relationships she had nurtured, and the moments she had lived were the things that would endure far beyond her time. In order not to face the end of life alone, I must live for myself, Emiko whispered to herself, her voice barely audible in the quiet room. The words lingered in her mind, slowly sinking in, like the first drop of rain on a dry earth. She had spent the majority of her life living for others, first for her husband, then for her children, always putting their needs before her own. But somewhere along the way, she had lost herself. She had forgotten the dreams she once had, the passions that once ignited her spirit. All of her energy had been consumed by the roles she had assumed: mother, wife, caretaker. In the process, her joy had been buried beneath the weight of self-sacrifice. One day, while sitting alone, reflecting on her life, a thought crossed her mind that would change everything. If she kept living for everyone else, she would never truly live for herself. She realized she had to rediscover who she was, outside of her family, and outside of her responsibilities. She couldn't let her life slip away in quiet resignation, waiting for the inevitable. Emiko wanted to live, before time ran out. It wasn't that she loved her family any less. It was that she had to find a way to live passionately, to breathe deeply, to create something of her own that was more than just surviving. With a renewed sense of determination, Emiko found herself drawn to a small community band. She wasn't a professional musician, but she had always loved the piano. The band was a humble group of musicians who came together for the sheer joy of music, and it quickly became a place for Emiko to reconnect with something she had long forgotten: her creativity. The first time she sat down at the piano, her fingers trembling slightly as she placed them on the keys, she felt a stirring deep within her. Music had always been a form of release for her, and it was here, among friends who shared the same love for art, that she found a space to simply be. The music was more than just notes on a page. It was a means of expression, a channel for all the emotions she had kept hidden for so long. But it wasn't just the music that captivated her. It was the sense of connection, of belonging to something greater than herself. The people in the band were like a second family, and as she played alongside them, she realized how powerful it was to be a part of something that wasn't defined by familial duty or societal expectations. It was a place where she could be Emiko, the woman who loved music, who felt deeply, who could laugh freely without worrying about the needs of others. The band became her sanctuary, her refuge. One of the most moving moments of her journey came when the band was invited to perform at a nursing home. The elderly residents, many of them alone, frail, and struggling with the loneliness that comes with old age, lit up when the music began. Emiko could see it in their eyes. Hope, joy, and a kind of relief. Music, it seemed, had the power to bridge the gap between generations, to remind people that they were not forgotten, not invisible. After the concert, several of the residents came to thank them, their faces glowing with gratitude. Some of them even shared their stories. Stories of love, loss, and lives lived with passion. At that moment, Emiko realized something she had never fully understood before: the power of giving. By sharing her music, and by contributing a small piece of herself to others, she had opened up a space of warmth and connection. It wasn't just about the notes she played, it was about the feelings she evoked, the smiles she inspired, and the brief escape she gave to people who had spent so many years feeling alone. If you are still watching this video and find these lessons useful, please comment 3 below to let me know that you are still here with me. From that day forward, the band's mission expanded. What had started as a small group of friends playing for fun quickly turned into a community project. They began performing not just at nursing homes, but in parks, hospitals, and local cultural events. Every month, they would find new places to share their music, spreading joy wherever they went. The people they met were always surprised to see a group of older musicians performing with such energy and passion. When people hear about us, they can hardly believe it, Emiko laughed, a sense of pride in her voice. But we know better. Age is just a number. If you have enough passion, you can do anything. We're proof of that. There was something powerful in her words, something in the way she spoke that showed just how much she had grown. She wasn't just playing the piano, she was sharing a piece of her soul, and that was something no one could take away from her. But life, as always, has a way of testing us when we least expect it. One day, her youngest daughter, Yuki, came to her, tears streaming down her face. "Mom," she said, her voice quivering with anguish, "I want a divorce. I can't take it anymore." Emiko's heart sank as she saw the pain in her daughter's eyes. For a moment, she wanted to rush in with comforting words, to solve the problem, to ease her daughter's suffering. But Emiko knew better. She had lived through enough heartache herself to understand that sometimes the best thing a mother could do was listen. And so, Emiko quietly sat beside Yuki, placing a hand gently on her daughter's trembling arm. She didn't say a word as Yuki poured out all her frustrations, all the years of pain and disappointment that had built up in her marriage. She could feel the weight of Yuki's grief, the years of suppressed emotions spilling out. It wasn't easy to listen to, but Emiko didn't look away. She simply sat there, offering her daughter a safe space to express everything she had been holding inside. When Yuki finally finished, Emiko took her daughter's hand in her own. There was no rush to offer a solution, no quick advice to fix the problem. Instead, Emiko looked into Yuki's eyes with a depth of understanding that only comes from lived experience. "I don't think I can fix this for you with just words," Emiko said gently. "But look at me. I lost your father when I was young. I had to raise you and your brother on my own. Those years were incredibly hard, and there were times I felt like giving up. But I never did. And now, I'm living a happier life than I ever thought possible. This life is yours, Yuki. You will have to make difficult choices, but you can rest when you're tired. Never give up. You are stronger than you know. I have faith in you." Emiko's words were simple, but they held a deep wisdom, wisdom born of resilience, of surviving the storms life had thrown her way. Yuki, still trembling, looked at her mother, and for the first time in a long while, she felt a flicker of hope in her heart. It wasn't a promise of an easy solution or a magic fix, but a reminder that life wasn't about avoiding struggles. It was about learning to endure them, to grow from them. From that day forward, Yuki decided to take control of her life. She sought counseling, something she had never considered before, and slowly began to rebuild her sense of self. She found a new job, one that allowed her to rediscover her passions, and through it all, she realized something profound. Sometimes, the greatest gift a parent can give a child isn't advice, but a living example. Emiko, through her example, had shown Yuki what it meant to stand tall in the face of hardship, to never give up, and to always chase joy, even in the hardest of times. In the quiet strength of her mother, Yuki found the courage to rise above her struggles, to embrace the life she had ahead of her, and to live it with passion and purpose. Through Emiko's journey, Yuki had learned that life was not about simply enduring. It was about thriving, about living authentically, and about giving, not just to others, but to oneself. And that was the greatest lesson of all. What a beautiful and inspiring journey we've just witnessed through Emiko's story. A story of rediscovery, strength, and the transformative power of living for yourself. Emiko's example teaches us that life is not just about caring for others, but also about nurturing our passions and dreams. Whether it's through music, personal growth, or simply learning to embrace the struggles of life, we all have the power to create meaningful change, no matter our age or circumstances. So, what have you learned from Emiko's journey so far? What lesson from her story resonates most with you, and how do you plan to bring it into your own life? We would love to hear from you. Leave your thoughts and one thing you plan to practice in life in the comments below this video. And if you found this video inspiring, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to our channel for more stories like this. Your support means the world to us. Thank you for watching, and we look forward to hearing your thoughts.